So what kind of home can you get on a $300,000 budget in Rockwall County? Are there any properties available under $200,000? And if we're really dreaming, what are the most expensive homes in Rockwall County? We thought it might be fun to answer those questions and more, taking a dive and looking at the data currently. So let's get started. Before we dive into the data, it's important to get some perspective. So just keep in mind that this is just a snapshot. I pulled this data yesterday, which is January 20th, 2026. And there were just under 1,000 homes on the market in Rockwall County. And that, of course, is going to change over time with different conditions and busier seasons and slower seasons. But this is just a snapshot. Let's start with the question, are there any properties available under $200,000 in Rockwall County? And technically, the answer is yes. You might notice over here that our first list price on the upper right-hand corner is $201. And so I didn't pull that data specifically to show you. However, I started out looking at under 100,000, and there were actually 3 properties that showed up in Rockwall County. 2 of those were mobile homes, and one of those was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house built in 1965, and it was about 840, I think it was 847 square feet. Now that property is under contract already. The second thing I did is I said, okay, now let's look at everything under 200 down to 100. And I found 4 additional properties. One of those properties was a mobile home. A second property was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house built in 1980. And there was a 1985 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo, all for sale, under 200,000. Now, one thing to keep in mind with condos, if we're looking at a price, we have to realize a lot of times condos will have homeowners association fees, and they can be kind of hefty. That particular property, I want to say the HOA fee was $363. And so for that extra amount of monthly payment, you may actually be able to afford more than the $200,000 price point. So just a little thing to keep in mind. The 4th property under $200,000 was a 1996 built 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and just under 1,300 square feet. But that property was already under contract. So that catches us up to our first table. And for this table, I looked at everything that was $250,000 or below that's currently on the market. And I'll just show you a few things that are up here. If you look towards the top of the screen, we got the first column is going to be bedrooms. And you'll hear me refer to, say, a 1-1 or a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. Typically, I'm quoting the full baths, and that's what you'll hear me say. We've got square footage is the next column. YB is year built. It also includes garage. Is there a pool? Sometimes it's access to a pool. Sometimes it's actually a pool on the property. Size of acreage, if applicable, and list price. Price per square foot is also included. I just caution you about using price per square foot. I can do another video on why that's not always the best measurement or best indicator to use, but you can see what the asking price is. And so that's the type of information you'll see on all these tables. So when I looked at $250,000 or below, we found that there were 24 properties on the market, and they range from everything from 1-bedroom, 1-bath condos all the way to 4-bedroom, 3-baths. So you could technically get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath for under $250,000. And you can see the cities in Rockwall County on the far left as we kind of look at some of that information. Now, the year built ranged everywhere from 1955 all the way to 2005 in this 250 price point. There was one property that was built in 2025. Okay, I've just gone down to the summary of all the data for that under 250,000, and you can see here in the center, it's a minimum of 827 square feet, a max of 2182. And you've also got an average and a median. I tend to focus on the median The problem with averages when you're looking at data sets is there are extra large things, or the extremes can really throw off your averages. But in general, when we look at median, that means half is above and half is below. And so we can get an idea that for that 250 price range, it's probably going to be a property about 1,366 plus or minus. Before we move on to the $300,000 properties and below, do you have a guess at what the most expensive property is in Rockwall County? Throw it in the comments for us. So now we're on the table of properties $300,000 or below, and we had 61 properties show up in this 50,000 range, because remember, we're going 300 to 250 since we already covered 250. And there were homes that ranged from 2-bedroom, 1-bath, all the way to 5-bed, 3-bath. One of those had 0, and that's because it was a gutted property. All right, kind of scrolling through and got a few pages and going down to the summary of data. Let's see what we've got here. We already kind of mentioned our beds, baths, but how about square footage, which is this column right here? And so we got a minimum of 866, a max of 2587. So for under $300,000, what that's telling us is that we'd be able to get a property 2,500 square feet or below. The median, much more than what we had, not quite 400 square feet more than what we had in the price point below this, but up to the median being 1,700 square feet. The year built median is 2007. If you or someone you know is thinking about buying in the near future, we've been in the business over 15 years. We're happy to offer a no-cost, no-obligation consultation, and we do those phone calls, 30-minute phone calls. You can see that on our page. All right, so let's go up another 50,000. So these are properties under 350 but above 300, and we have everything from 104 properties in this category. 2-bedroom, 2-bath properties up to 5-bedroom, 3 baths. And we'll have one that's got 0 beds, and that's because it's uninhabitable. You can see some of the different cities and price points and information. You can see which ones have a pool, how much acreage you might be looking at. And ultimately, we are going to take a look at this summary of information. And let's look specifically first at the low end, $1,290. Remember, this is $350,000 price point. Low end of 1,290 square feet. High end of $2,650. And the median of $1,880. And so for an extra $50,000, getting not quite as much square footage as the last price point, but still a little bit higher. All right, so going up another price point, another 50,000, this one topping out at 400,000. We've got 131 properties in this price range, and it's 2-bedroom, 2 baths, all the way up to 6-bedroom, 4 baths. There is one outlier that's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, but for the most part, that's what you'll be getting in that $400,000 price point. And those last two is well over 100. So under 400 adds in 400 to 300 adds in another 135 properties for you. I'm sorry, 235 properties. Let's scroll down and see what the median square footage and year built are. All right, so here's our square footage column, and we have a minimum of 1313 and a max of 3704. And so that extra 50,000 can buy you quite a bit more square footage, it looks like. The median comes in around 2240. Looking at year built, we've got properties from 1960 all the way to 2026, with the median being the year 2020. And so getting you a property that's more than likely less than 10 years old, if that's an important factor to you. All right, so for this next one, we jump up $100,000 to where before we were jumping up every 50,000, but going up to everything 500,000 and below, it gives us 185 properties. And we'll scroll all the way to the bottom to look for the summary. All right, so we can see the minimum beds are 2, the max are 5. Actually, just we had that 1 6-bedroom that was in the price point below, but this one has a max of 5-bedroom, 2 full baths, 4 full baths for the max, low range on square footage of 1444, high range over 4,000 square feet. A lot of house there. And our median coming in at 2484. The median for these properties is for the bedrooms was 4 and the median of 3. So half are going to have more, half are going to be below that. The year built, we've got 1975, so a little bit later, and on the minimum range, and 2026, so all the way up to brand new. The median year is 2019, and I thought it was interesting that our median price came in at $450 when we looked at everything from 500 all the way down to 4. So about half is above $450 and about half is below. All right, for our final look, we're looking at everything in Rockwall County above $500,000, looking for the most expensive asking price in the county. And hopefully you made your guesses on that. But what we found is there's over 466 properties that are above 500. And within that, we've got properties that are as much as 121 acres. And Rockwall County is not that big, so to have one with that much acreage is kind of rare. We've also got a property with 8 bedrooms and 9 baths. However, if you do total baths, it's 15 baths. Like I said, I normally just count the full baths when I'm talking about them. But up to 15 baths, and guess what? It's not even the most expensive property that's listed. So let's scroll down, look at the summary, and see what the most expensive property is. All right, I tried to edit out the pain of all the scrolling for you and just jumped on down to it. And here's the answer to our last question. That's $6,800,000 in Rockwall County. Shows 10,000 square feet, built in 2016, does of course have a pool, about 1.5 acres. And it's not really the biggest house, but it's not always, and the most acreage, that's the most expensive, but there's a lot more factors that go into that. If you're thinking about buying, you might be anxious about the process. And the next thing for you to do is watch this video here called No More Fear, Taking the Stress Out of Home Buying.